Well, hello there, YouTube. It's Friday, August 5th, 2022. And this week, I went ahead and I lapped the valves and then I tested them to make sure that they were good. And the things that you're going to need for this is, of course, my little DIY vacuum pump tester and some plugs so you can plug up the holes that you need to plug. And then the surgical tubing is what I used. And there's a link to that right up here, to making this and actually seeing that in action. In addition to that, these are the other tools that I'm going to be using. So I've got a scale and a micrometer and a caliper. And the reason is because I bought brand new valves and I want to compare the TRW valves with the genuine Mercedes-Benz valves that came out of it. So that's why I've got all the measuring tools. Otherwise, you don't need those, but you'll need some valve lapping sticks. And I have links to every single tool that I used in this video in the description below. In addition to the scales and all that, I wanted to test these different types of compounds. That steel blue I used on the right. That's a layout fluid, and I use that to coat the seats and the valves to give me an initial impression. I wanted to see just how well they seat without doing any lapping. I want to see where the imperfections are. So otherwise, I have these three different types of compounds. And I talk about those, and I talk about which one I chose and why I chose it. And I wanted to point out that in this video, I'm going to set a new standard. So this is a long video, and there's links in the description down below so you can jump to the section that you want. But before you go, I want you to realize that I've set a standard. On the internet right now, I've seen guys doing these vacuum tests. You know, but they're all different, right? And most of them are like happy if it held for 10 seconds. Well, I've got news for you that now my new standard, you'll see by the end of this video, you're going to pull a vacuum, right? You're going to pull a full vacuum. And then besides pulling the vacuum, your leak down, you're going to have no leak down. That's right, no leak down whatsoever. It's going to hold that for a minimum of 5 minutes. And the reason why I say 5 minutes is because that was my worst performing valve. And I show you that. As a matter of fact, in this video, it's very detailed like all my other ones. I'm not going to bore you with too much stuff, but there's a section I think I wanted to record in real time, and that is me lapping a brand new valve. How long did I lap it? What paste did I use? How did I lap that? Right? And so I show you that one. That's a brand new valve. Then I also show you an exhaust valve. How long I do it in an exhaust valve. And then there's some variances in between. But I wanted to keep certain things in real time so that way you know exactly what was done, because that's always my question. Well, how long did he really do that for? You know, what kind of compound is that? You know, blah, 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 blah. I have all these questions, and I decided I want to answer all those questions in this video. So, I start off, like I said, comparing the valves with the genuine Mercedes valves. And then after that, I wanted to establish a baseline. So before I do any lapping, I grabbed an old intake valve because I bought all brand new intakes. Took out an old intake valve, did nothing to it. Nothing's been done to the head as far as the valve seat area goes. And I threw the valve in there dry, except for oiling the stem of the valve. And I did an initial vacuum test. And I did that with everything. I show those results so that you kind of know what you're looking at. And you also need to remember that both of these heads passed the water test, which is one of the most common tests that people are using on the internet. So you can fill the top right where the valves are and wait. Some guys will wait overnight to see if it leaks, blah, 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 blah. So you're looking for water that leaks. We did that. The other thing you can do is turn the head on its side, because that little leak test is only that much water, really, you know, that's in there. So the other test is, instead of filling the cylinder part where the valves are, you turn it on its side and fill the chamber. That gives it a little bit of gravity, but again, it's not very good. So the other test we did as well in another video, and I have a link to it, is that I filled the chamber, you know, the top with water, and then inside the port, I blew air in it. Again, it's not very consistent, it's not repeatable, you know, and again, it was completely sealed. So everything's sealed perfectly, but not with a vacuum test. That's right, the vacuum test is a lot more precise, and not necessarily the vacuum, but the leak down. You'll see why, and I show you why. I think that's very good. So once I establish that baseline, I go ahead and I lap it, and then I discover new baselines, right? Now I have a baseline of a lapped valve. And then as I lap through it all, because I'm only going to show you the one, then I go back and I lap them all, and I find out, oh boy, yeah, you can go without any leakage. So that's what we're striving for. That's what you should be striving for, and you'll see why and all that in this video. Let's see, what else do I need to do? Well, all I can say is that I've got links to all the tools and everything that I use down below, and I want you guys to subscribe. I'm trying to promote this channel because I do it a little bit differently, right? I give you some details and some background, let you see, hey, if you're doing this, chances are you're probably replacing your valve. So, hey, you should know what you're up against, because you're going to find out the manual may actually be wrong. So this video is going to expose all those little things. So, all right, let's see. I want to make sure that you guys realize these are not how-to videos. These are how I went about it videos, right? And I'm not going to apologize for how long this video is, because I think it was needed. Those are all the things that I did, and chances are you will do the same. And now there's no surprises along the way. So, all right, let's just get this video going, because I got to get back to work in here. We got a lot more going. And subscribe. You know, I'm going to be starting this car. That's right. I'm going to try to start this car live right here on YouTube, and I would like you guys to be a part of it. You know, there's a lot more videos coming. It doesn't just pertain to this 560 1987. No, this is the R107. There's a lot of things that I'm going to be doing in the future that's going to pertain to all the cars. And this M117, yeah, that engine block has been around a long time. So this pertains to a lot of them, right? So until then, let's get this video going, and I'll catch you guys on the next one. So this is my box from FCPEuro. And there should be 8 valves in here and a gasket. So you get a lifetime warranty when you buy at FCPEuro. You can't buy genuine Mercedes-Benz. All right, well, it looks like we've got 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, and then I guess the other 2 are going to come in a different packet, huh? And then the other 2. All right, well, in that box, I had 6 of these and 2 of these. So I thought I should at least compare these two. They look like they're from 2 different decades. In addition to that, you know, I had this EGR valve, or EGR gasket. You guys remember that for the EGR valve? Now, I want to compare it with the valve I took out of the car. The number 1 intake valve. So, let me see. As far as that goes, they look very similar, right? I would say that they are very, very close. So, this one here is the older one, right? Because it's discolored. So, this is the... I'll pull this one up so you can see this first. And then the face of it. All right, so that's an old one that's cleaned up. And this is a new one. That's the face of it. I mean, that's actually is scratches. Not by me. Even on the edge, I see things because, you know, they throw these things in a bin. Right? That's what they do. They throw these things in just a big old bin. That's why the guy reaches in there and grabs how many he needs and throws the other ones back in there. And when they do that, they kind of, you know, they don't think. No one's thinking. So it's not going to harm anything. So I've noticed it's got the same taper. Well, we're going to measure everything again. Again, you can see though, this one seems like it's more worn or something. So, and this area here is, you know, where I measured it. So, and I have already just measured that, so I know that I zeroed out my micrometer. And my original numbers I have right here. So for this valve, it was 0.3523. And I verified that. I zeroed this out and I verified it. I know that that's true. So I've measured that one. Now I'm going to measure this one. So I know it's at least that, right? So we'll go a little bit bigger, and I'm just going to go right in here in the girthy area, or right in the middle. I remember last time how I did this. There's an easier way to do it. There we go. Okay. All right, 3, 5, 1, 2, 7. So it's not on the high end, but it's definitely spec'd, okay? So the new valve specs as far as that goes. Now, the other thing I want to try is, you know, you don't need one of these. I have one. I know that this is a 45-degree cut. You know, all going to do is just verify that, you know, it's right. That it's the right grind and everything. So I can't even see it, but I'm sure you guys can. Let's see. See it? So now I can measure this distance. We did that before. I'm going to say that 1.5. Oh, that's a new valve. 1.5. That part is new. Definitely. That checked out. I was just kind of curious on the distance of this while I'm at it. Maybe 46.19, 46.20? Yeah, 46.21. How does that compare to this? This one comes out to 46.21. 46.21. All right, so I got my scale out. We'll start with the old one. 121.3. 121.3. Well, that was the old one. I should have not wrote that down. I've wiped all these down. So let's see what this one comes out to. Ooh, 124.8. 124.8. All right. Now that we've done that one that's in the bag, now let's do the one that's not in that bag. I'm going to wipe it down first. All right, let's see how the other one that was in the bag does. 124.4. I saw something fall on there. 124.4.5 right in there. 124.5. So that weighs a little bit different. It looks good. So that's that. Let's go ahead and see what kind of a measurement we get. 52, 7. Same thing. Yep, 3527. A little bit too big. That's pretty close right there. Maybe a little. Oh, let's see. Yeah, I'd say that's it. This says 151. It's probably 150 just like the other one. Well, this one comes out to 46. Well, maybe not. 4621. 4620. Same thing. 4620, 4621. So, well, that is good news to see some consistency in something. All right. So now that I've done this, what I want to do is I just want to do an initial leak test. Before I start lapping, I'm going to definitely take a test. This is the old intake valve. I have all new intake valves, but I want to get a pre-test first. So I've coated it with oil, and then just on the stem. I'm going to hold it and then wipe the end of this with lacquer thinner because I want it nice and clean and kind of oil free, because I found out that when you put this on your stem, you see from my other video, I'm doing this instead of stem seals. Just slide it on the end like that. And all I'm doing is sliding that up on the stem itself. And then up onto the guide. So I've got my gauge right here where we can watch the gauge. I'll draw first this way. Let's get an initial draw here. So we got, pretty close to about 24 pounds. And that's the leak. It might have a little bit of a leak somewhere there, maybe. I doubt it, though. It's not much if it is. All right. This is number one. Number one intake. And what I did is I created this little chart here so I can test each one, get my peak vacuum before and after. And so that's what I'm going to use. And let's go ahead and trying to get between all these cameras and everything. All right, let's open this up and get a draw, see if we can. It's off. Pretty good, right? All right, so now I've got the new valve in there, and I'm going to go ahead and run a vacuum check. So I've done it the same way. Let's go ahead and see if we can draw one vacuum. Here we go. Let's turn this on here. Ready, go. And stop right there. I want to make sure I still have a thing. So that's about 13 seconds or so. All right, that wasn't bad. That's a valve, the machinist, no one's ever touched these valve seats or the valves. They're a brand new valve. So now I'm going to go and I'm going to test each one of these. All right, let's move on to valve number 2. And here we go. That draws 24. Go. And and stop. So that one was just a little under 10 seconds. All right. But hey, it's a brand new valve. Let's move on to the next one. Ooh, we can only rub out 22. And there's our leak down. It's pretty quick.
I didn't do it.
That's all right. We're going to go ahead and just make sure that the valve is good. We'll give her another shot. Let's try it again. Oh, there we go. 24. Let's hold it. And stop. So that's only about 6 or so seconds.
7.
So let's see. We're moving on to number 4. Oh yeah. About 23 and a half. And I'm shut off. Look at that seal. That's nice. Look at that. Right out of the gate, guys. Wow. Isn't that nice? Woo! Wow. Pretty unbelievable, right? Can we get that good of a seal? I'm not even holding on to it, right? It's just holding all on its own. Unbelievable. Look at that. Woo! I'm already at almost 40 seconds. Look at that. I am 40, over 40. Oh my goodness. God, do I even want to touch that valve? Look at the seal on that. Wow, if I let that go all the way down. And I'm going to stop right there. You guys, come on. That is very impressive. That is out of the box valve without lapping, without anything, just out of the box. I think you could pretty much just take these valves and drop them in and drive. Drop and drive. That's what I'm going to call this series, is drop and drive. So those are all the intakes as it sits before I lap. Now, I want to go ahead and I'm going to test all my exhaust valves, and then I'm going to go grab the other head and do the same thing. And I'll share all those results with you, but I'm not going to make you watch me do it. Well, now that I've ran a vacuum test on every single port, I also want to review that I measured all those new valves, and these are the new numbers. You can tell right here, the valve stem diameter, right? For the intake valve. I think the manual has an error. And I'll tell you why. These are brand new valves. And you see where they spec? Right at the bottom of the spec. But if you look at the exhaust valve, what I want you to see is the diameter of that exhaust valve and the number. For example, the tolerances for the exhaust valve are 8.96, right, to 8.935. Well, you see that distance, or just look at the right, 28 and 18, right? 35.28 to 35.18. But if you notice, on the intake side, we don't have that difference. We don't have 10 difference. So that's, I mean, if apples were apples, the measurement would be 21 to 31, right? Because we have 18 to 28 on the exhaust valves. And if that were 21 to 31, then that 27 would be dead center for the tolerances. So I'm a little bit disappointed because I think that the manual is actually wrong, and I bought these valves and probably did not need to buy these valves, although I did have one valve that had to be replaced. And this is the right head, and again, these valves, they all spec'd out. So the 3527 was straight across the board. Most likely that's in the middle of the tolerance, so everyone should know that. That's why I'm pointing that out. This is what I notice. You know, if it's brand new valve, you'd think it would at least spec. So I just think there's an error there. And then, of course, our length came out to 117 roughly. I mean, it's maybe 0.2. It could have, but it didn't bother me too much. And then we have our valve height retainer. It's right there at the top. So, spec'd out as new. So here they tell you when it's new. The other one is just your tolerances. They don't tell you this is the new valve. I think if they said this is a new one, we'd know. So let's move on to the next thing, which is trying to improve on these next numbers here. So I went ahead and I tested all 8 cylinders, the intake and the exhaust. We only have one valve each. And I was able to pull a vacuum on every single one. All right, I thought it was 24, but that thing's only pulling about 23. To me, it doesn't really matter. That number is not as important as everyone wants to think. At least I don't feel that if you pull 1 pound or 1,000 pounds of vacuum, I don't think it matters. The whole idea is, can you pull a vacuum based on the pump that you're using, and you know, pull that full amount. So if your vacuum pump pulls 20, then you should pull 20. All right. So that at least you know you're pulling a vacuum. And then the next thing is like the leak down. How long does it take? So what I found pretty impressive is the brand new valves. If you look at valve number 4, so all these intake valves are new. The slowest leak down over there was actually 2 minutes and 30 seconds, if you guys can believe that. I stopped. If you notice, I just 2 minutes and 30 seconds. I just stopped because it almost held it and just wouldn't even release it. So I know that the possibility is there, and that is a brand new valve, and the heads were untouched. They were just cleaned. They were untouched otherwise. That's straight out of the bag. So now my concern is lapping going to improve these really low numbers? If you look at intake number 3, that's a brand new valve, and it pulled 7 seconds. 7.16 seconds. I had help measuring and everything to get these numbers right. So I want to actually start with that valve, because if I can't improve that valve and how long it takes to leak down, then I see no point in me touching any other valve on this engine. As of right now, I've probably seen 200 different videos and people doing different ways with hand pumps and all that other stuff, but I've never seen anybody hold it for like 2.5 minutes. So, and that thing probably would have held for 3 minutes. I don't think I need to demonstrate that, because we're going to eventually be testing it again anyway. So, but these are the numbers. So now the next question is, what do I use to lap these valves? Well, here in the United States, the most common that I have seen, I remember this as a little kid and my dad using it when he was rebuilding a Volkswagen and lapping the valves, and my dad used Permatex. This is a variable grit paste that supposedly breaks down as you go. My eyesight is not good enough, but it's like 120 to 220. And that's exactly what it is. 120 to 220. Now, if this were a 3-angle valve, which is some of the newer valves, I mean, they have different angles and all this. We only have 1 angle. This is probably safe for a single angle valve, although I don't necessarily think that I should probably be grinding in this manner. So I purchased it. Yeah, I purchased it. So I have it. But another type is this. This is also a very common valve grinding paste. This is from the UK. It's a two-headed can. You got a coarse and a fine. And if you research that, the fine is a 220, just like the Permatex. And the coarse is an 80, so it's actually a lot coarser. Tassos is the one that told me about this. I've seen it before. A lot of the German guys use it when I were building it, and like I say, the UK, it's a very common paste. But Tassos let me know about this. I seen him use it once. I was going to ask him about it, but he went ahead and let me know that this is what he's been using for years, and his father and his grandfather. I mean, that's been around just like the Permatex forever and a day. I think this is probably a good paste right here. I would choose this paste over the Permatex for the pure fact that you've got a fine and a coarse. You've separated your grits, right? I don't want to put a coarse grit on an area that doesn't need it. That's all I feel about it. Now, what am I going to go with? Well, I'm going to start with this Goodson. It's a 400 grit is the one that I purchased. Did you know you can buy these in all kinds of grits, folks? That's right. So they have this from a 120 to a 1000 grit. I chose this 400 grit. And why did I choose this 400 grit? Because I had to use my own mind to figure this out, right? No one's going to tell Tony, except his friends, which we know for a fact, this works. I know that works. I've seen it done. Tassos has done it. I've seen many, many people use it. I know that works. So what's the difference between these two? Oh, what's the difference between all three of them? I think I want to know. So I'm gonna smear some on a white piece of paper. We're gonna take a look at it. But why did I choose the 400? Well, my idea about lapping is not about changing anything. I really don't want to change anything. I want the valve lapping compound basically to show me visually how well my valve is making contact against the seat. Just a visual presentation. That's my number one thing. The second thing I want to do is if there's any pieces of carbon or a little burr, because they've got knocked against each other, which I showed you earlier, the new valves, they throw them in a big bin and they get dinged up a little bit. But all those, just a little itty bitty imperfections is what I'm concerned about. Is this good enough? I don't know. I don't know if 400 grit is good enough. I've never done it, so how can I know, right? But we're all going to know here in a minute which way to go, or am I going to use all three? I don't think so. All right, I don't think so. I think I get the idea. This is this is the finest, right? And then this one here on the fine is the other one I would use. I'm not going to use this at all. I don't necessarily even think that that's a safe one to use with multi-angled valves. In this case, yes, it's fine. It was made 100 years ago, that paste, and it's still relevant for all these older engines. Otherwise, stick with a certain grit and see how well it does. Always start with the fine first. I'm just going one step higher, and I'm going to start with this. And what I've done is I set up this worst valve. So the worst valve is this number 3. And on this intake side, we could only get 7 seconds out of it. That's all I could get. So that's the same valve. I've cleaned it. I haven't put oil on I did put oil on the stem before I set it in there. But other than that, I've done nothing. All right, so this here is Permatex. And this is what it looks like. So that's Permatex. This here is the Chemico. And this is the course to begin with here. And then this is the fine, which is what Tassos recommended. It's nice and uniform. It's what he's been using. And I think, well, I'll let you know in a minute. Let's go ahead and look at Goodson. This is Goodson. It's a very nicely uniformed paste. Of course, it's a finer grit. But I feel like, you know, 400 grit, whatever the grit, I just, you know, it's consistent. It's a very consistent looking. Now, what I don't like, I would not use this. The reason, there's a couple of reasons, but one of the reasons is, let's just take just common sense to start with. This has got variable grits in it. Tell me, as an example, if you had a bag of potato chips and you had some big ones and some little ones and that thing sat on the shelf, just moved around a little bit. When you opened it up, do you think all the little ones would float to the top or would they all fall to the bottom? That's right. All your big chips will stay at the top and your little ones would go to the bottom. Now, if it's a liquid-based thing like this, it's got some oils and things like that in it, what's going to happen is the complete opposite. The heavier stuff is going to settle and the lighter stuff is going to come to the top. How would you know at what point, you know, if it was stored this way, that way, that way? I guarantee you that's one thing that can happen with this. You can't knead it. If you tried to knead it, is that going to help any? It'll help distribute, but it's not going to really mix it. I just would not recommend this. I just wouldn't do it. The second one, Chemico. I think it's great. Nothing wrong with this whatsoever. If you need to do a heavy grind, it's got it, and they got a light grind. Right? And they're completely separate. They're very smooth. Both of them are consistent. The only thing I don't like about it is this jar, which they're famous for. But you have to put it back. You should put it in a bag because if it's too hot, again, you know, the same thing. Can grit settle and then the greases can separate? You get more grease than you get grit? Absolutely. But what's nice about this is you can mix it before you apply it. Right? You can mix it, try to get it as best blended as you can, you're fine. Some people even thin it down. All right? So that's my opinion on that. This would be my choice. However, what I really like about this, and they sell it in all the different grits, is that I can fine-tune anything I want. Right? And secondly, this has got a great screw-on cap. It doesn't leak. But again, you can see this thing was settled this way, right? So it should be mixed. All right, so I just thought, you know, someone should share this. I mean, I have all three. Why not share what I found? Why I wouldn't use one over the other? I'm not an expert, but you know, I have a lot of common sense. So I'm going to go with the really fine stuff. If I need to go a little bit more, I'll try the Chemico 220. But let's go ahead and start. What I've done here is I went ahead and I marked it with steel blue, right? It's just for layout. It's a layout liquid. I put it around the seat and I put it around the valve. And now I'll apply paste, and then we'll drop it in there. I'll get some oil on here and I'll wipe, make sure my fingers aren't on it. But this will allow me to quickly measure how much surface is being contacted. Very quickly, very easily, because the blue is going to come off and it's going to expose the metal down below. And then I can take a micrometer, or not, a caliper to it and measure it. You can see there's like a little edge that's catching, and then it's not getting a good one there, right? This side looks pretty good. You know, I'd say for the majority of it, it's in pretty good shape, right? You can still see that machining, right? You know, for the most part, this seat looks great. So I've reapplied my lapping compound. Put oil on my stem. All right, let's go ahead and do it. Sounded good. Don't want any of that stuff to get down inside. Let's take a look. So there's that edge now. Looking better. You still see it needs a little bit more. All this side looks great. This other side looks good. There's one little spot right there, but that's on the bottom. I don't think that's going to interfere. Alright, so I'll put more compound on it and oil the stem here. And let's give it one last little grind and see where we get. Nice and clean. Well, she popped off, so I think that's probably got a good seal, is what just happened. Oh yeah, you can tell by it. Let's go ahead and pull that out of there. Alright, this is what that looks like. This is that back side that I was having trouble. I moved the thing so we could see it really well right now. There's that back edge that I was having a little trouble with. Or, you know, that showed it's still maybe not a perfect seal. But it's better. It could probably use a little bit more lapping, but I'm kind of curious on how well this thing draws now after a little bit. So let's do a vacuum test. I've got the valve in, and I have this my little rubber grommet, right? Surgical tubing instead of a seal. See how much we draw. Oh, about 23 and a half, it looks like. Hold it. That might be 22 and a half, I'm sorry. Okay. Well, we doubled the time. Originally that was 7 seconds, 7.16 seconds. And we got approximately almost 15 seconds out of it. So we've doubled the efficiency, and that's above the 10. Do I keep going? Can I improve it? Probably. So let's give it a try. All right, I think we can improve it. Let's get my hands on here and so the one thing is you don't want it to get dry, right? So you want to make sure you don't do that. I mean, that sounds pretty good to me right there. That's it. That's about as good as I'm going to get it. All right, got my tester, got the valve in. You can see I've got it seated right there. Plug right there for that. Let's see if we can take a draw. It looks like 23 and go. So we're holding. Look at that. Right, all I'm doing is just holding it. I'm not touching the valve. It's holding on its own. You can still see we're doing just fine. Right?
Okay, so
We went from 7 seconds, we're already at 40, you guys. I've increased it 500%. And I did all this in real time, so you know exactly how long I lapped it. It's a brand new valve. This is an intake valve. The seats have not been touched. They may have been by someone else, but they have not been touched by me. And you can see this is quite an incredible feat. We're already almost at 1.5 minutes. Some of this leakage is due on its own threads and everything, right? Just all the connections. It's going to have some leakage. I feel a leak down test is more important than the actual amount of suction. I don't think you need a more powerful pump, vacuum pump, as long as you're able to produce around like this thing, 23 pounds. The whole idea is how well is that thing sealed. And I can tell you right now, that thing is sealed better than any other engine I saw on the internet using this method of testing. I'm already over 2 minutes, going on 2.5 minutes. And you can see the needle is almost stuck. It just is stuck. Pretty much. It's barely creeping along. And since we're at 2 minutes and 33 seconds or so, something like that, I think I'm done testing this valve. And I think it's a success. Well, I'd say that that valve checked out pretty good, right? We went all the way to 2 minutes and 30 seconds. So here's the results of that. We started out at 7.16 seconds is what I got. And after only 2 minutes and 38 seconds, less than 3 minutes, it looks like per valve, I might be able to generate 2 minute and 30 second leak down. So I think it's now, I think I'm just going to go ahead and complete the lapping of the rest of this head, because all those results in this head right now, that 2 minutes and 30 seconds is the best. So if we can get it all up to there, I mean, I almost like to go grab the other one and take that one that held number 5 and see, can I actually improve that or will I make it worse? But I think a 2 minute and 30 second target is a good target. So that's what I'm going to shoot for on this head. I went ahead and I put the Dichem blue everywhere, and I put it on this exhaust valve, and we're going to finish number 3. Speaking of Goodson, they actually kind of tell you about leaking. They say take the guesswork, right? Well, you didn't take out any guesswork, because this article basically says you got to pull about 20 to 24 pounds or inches of vacuum. Of course, we're pulling 22, so let's just say that that's true. I don't believe it. I don't think that the amount that you pull is important. What's important is that it seals, right? That's not a consistent test that you can do. It doesn't really tell you a whole lot that you can draw a vacuum. It's a real fast test to know, okay, I can draw a vacuum. The real test is the leak down, right? And no one's gonna give you any specifics on that. I'm gonna start setting some standards here, because I've seen guys out there, they'll do it for, you know, a leak down for 10 seconds and say, woo, woo, well, gosh, this thing even right out of the box, I can go a lot longer than that. So I'm gonna set a standard, and I've decided so far, at least on those intake valves, we're going to go 2 minutes and 30 seconds. That's what our goal is, right? So if you're not reaching 2 minutes and 30 seconds, you're not doing as good a job as me. All right, let's go ahead and work on this exhaust head valve right here. All right, let's just get a little taste of it here. That's all I want to see what we got. All right, this is my initial test. All those areas will be leaking, right? It's not bad, but you can see that there's just a little bit. Not really pitting, more machining than anything. Alright, so still got some time left, but what I'm going to do is I'm just going to go ahead and finish all this, and then I'll come back and share the results. Alright, so let's take a quick little look. Exhaust. Here's intake. Exhaust. Intake. Exhaust. Intake. Exhaust. It could maybe use a little bit more. We'll see how she seals. But that's still, distance is still like 1.5 millimeter in there, roughly. I think it's going to be just fine. So that's it. Alright, so now I'm going to go wash it. Alright, I've got everything lapped, and I've plugged the injector hole there and inserted the valve, and I'm using that to make sure that that's sealed. The only thing I want to test is my valve seat. Right, how well does it seat in there? Alright, so that's all I've done. This is the right side cylinder, and this is the intake. Turn it on, here we go. All right, stop. Oh, ha 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 ha. Look at that, guys. That thing is not moving. And you remember this thing's got a leak down on its own. So I drew almost 24 pounds, and I think that's about as good as it gets. Oh my goodness, you guys. So now, I think I've just established a standard. So you need to pull a vacuum According to Goodson's, between 22 and 24. So, well, we pulled 23 and a half, 24 pounds roughly, no problem. Obviously it'll pull. You know, I don't even know, I'm obviously a minute and a half into it, and the leak down is what's the hose leaks. You can see that's a perfect seal. So now, unfortunately, now that I've established a baseline, that means all my valves need to look like this. And that means everybody on the internet now needs to follow my lead. Right? No one wants to put the stuff out there. Supposedly this is how a head shop would do it. I don't know. They have a different pump. They might pull more vacuum. I don't know. Is it going to seal any better? I doubt it. Nobody's posting any of that stuff on the internet. Right now, this is the only one I've seen that has a complete seal. I'm not doing anything. I mean, I'm holding it on there, but I don't need to hold it, as you can see. Watch. Right? I'd say that that's a pretty darn good seal. You can't get any better than that. Do I stand here and waste your time for the next 3 days as we watch this needle drop? I don't think it's necessary. So I'm going to go ahead and move on and test the next one. So that was an intake. I'm going to complete the intakes, and then we'll switch over to the exhaust, and then we'll go from there. Well, these are the results. I think I did pretty good. Unfortunately, that number 4 intake, I kind of went in the reverse direction. So I'm going to go ahead and redo those 3, but I also put some Dychem blue on the valve as well. I want to see if I can notice, you know, what might be wrong. Put some oil on the stem. So it looks good as well. That was only 45 seconds, so I'm going to do a little bit more. Well, I'm ready to retest. Got it all clean and flushed out and washed, and make sure there's nothing left behind. I've installed the number 2 intake, and I'm ready to go ahead and see what we get. Pull it. There it is. And off. There you go. That's what we're looking for. All right, so now it's number 3. I've got it all ready to go here. There's the vacuum, and off. There you go. As good as it gets. All right, I'm not holding on to it. It's all on its own. Looking good. All right, now I'm ready for intake valve number 4. It's all ready to go. Draw a vacuum. There it is, and it's off. And I think we're good on that one too, right? All right. So I've more than made it. We're still sitting there. And I consider that a success. Well, here are the final results. You can see we've got a leak down, and they had to hold that for at least 5 minutes. Most of them would probably hold it most of the day. You can see my lap time there. I had to re-lap that number 2, so a total of 4 minutes and 8 seconds on that one. Number 3, 4 minutes and 6 seconds. And number 4 was 4 minutes, or 3 minutes and 52 seconds. The rest of it was only 2 minutes and 30 seconds using that lapping compound. So as far as I'm concerned, I would say that both heads are now ready for reassembly. And so that's what I'm going to get this area all prepped and ready for, is putting these heads all back together. All right, guys, until the next time, thanks for watching.